Nick, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Justin, man. Been really excited about it. Was pumped to have you on the Best You podcast on my show, and so super excited to be on your show now, man.
Yeah, dude, we met at Amberly's event back in March. Was it March?
Late March.
Yeah, it was like 3 weeks before I got married. So
Yeah.
it was like met a ton of great people, and everybody who listens to these episodes, like that, I feel like all of my guests have been from that event recently. But it was really a great collection of individuals with great mindsets, with the right approach to life, with big hearts, and you were one of those individuals, and we really hit it off, and I enjoyed having a conversation with you time and time again throughout the weekend, and just excited to dive deep and introduce you to my audience, dude. But why don't we start with who is Nick today, and then we'll break down how you got there.
Cool. Yeah. Nick today is a fitness trainer, entrepreneur, podcaster, and speaker. I live in Nashville, Tennessee. My business is called Best You, and we help people build the healthy habits that will transform their body and their life via our 10-week transformation. And then we also have the Best You podcast, where we help people get closer to the best version of themselves on a daily and a weekly basis. And so I'm just super passionate about the health area of people's life, all areas of people's life, but especially the health area of people's lives, because I know that I've seen it time and time again with hundreds of people that I've coached, is that if we can get that area of our life correct, it can be the catalyst for the other areas of our life finding alignment and moving in the right direction. And so that's what I love to see, is being able to help people take control over that area of their life, and then they feel so much more confident, and then the other areas of their life flourish as well.
Yeah, man. So what led you down the path of getting into the fitness health space? Because I know a lot of times when I talk to individuals that have done it, they were either unhealthy themselves, or they had a family member who lost their life early because of it, or they just felt passionate. Like I had one guy on, he's like, dude, I opened up a magazine when I was a kid and saw Arnold Schwarzenegger, and here I am. So I'd love to hear how you got to this point where you're like, this is my passion, really about not only taking my life to the next level, but helping others do the same.
Yeah, so I'll go back to the very first thing. Was my dad was the person who got me and my older brother down on the floor probably when we were 7 years old doing push-ups. And so my dad was definitely the very first one to introduce us to fitness. He was always a runner, and he always did a bunch of push-ups, always did a bunch of sit-ups. He was just that guy. And my mom was fitness oriented as well. And so we had really good role models in that sense. I feel super, super blessed to have had that example set for me. And I have an older brother as well, and we were both really into sports. And when he got into high school, in ninth grade, he was a wrestler. And when you're a wrestler, you do a lot of strength training. You just do a lot of fitness in general. Like, that is a crazy sport. And when I was in seventh grade and he was in ninth grade, I played football. And that's when I really started to do my first strength training, my first fitness training, when I would go into school and do specific workouts for football. And oftentimes it was with him with wrestling. And, he was an older brother of mine that I looked up to, and he got to be really strong and fit at a pretty relatively young age. And I was like, I want to be like that too. And so a lot of it came from my family. And then it also had the chance to be nurtured through the sports that I played. I got really into both baseball and football all throughout high school, and was pretty good at both of them, and captains of my teams. And so I loved the training aspect with my team. Like, I loved the sports themselves for sure, but I loved the training aspect as a team almost even more so. Just like working hard with a group of individuals towards a common goal was so cool to me. And then after high school, actually, one more thing to mention is during high school, I had a personal trainer starting my junior year for these sports. And so that had me kind of taking my fitness a little bit to the next level. Then when I was in college, I went to University of Georgia, and I studied finance and risk management. And it was just something, a major that I went into because everybody else was doing it. It was a pretty general business major that a lot of my friends were doing. Parents said was a good thing to do. And I was like, I don't really know what I want to do. I always said I like sports, but I don't really know exactly what that turns into from a major perspective. So I studied finance and risk management. But then in between my sophomore and my junior year of college, I was back at home in Atlanta working out. And my personal trainer from high school was still at the gym that I was working out at. And we were having a conversation during one of my workouts. And he mentioned to me, have you ever thought about being a personal trainer? And I was like, no, not really. But he was like, I think
wasn't on my radar.
No, like, not at all on my radar. I think my thought was just personal trainers don't make any money, and so I don't want to do that. And he was like, well, I think you'd be really good at it. Like, I think you have the passion for it. Talk to me after your workout a little bit more. And so I talked to him after my workout, and he told me what it takes to get a personal trainer certification. And I was in between my sophomore and junior year, and I had a job as a waiter at a restaurant, and I had time. So I was like, I'll spend this few $100s and get my personal trainer certification, and maybe something comes of it. And then I went back to school my junior year, and long story short, I ended up seeing this orange tent out in this parking lot that said Orange Theory Fitness on it. And at the time, I had no idea what that was, and it was just a tent with the sign on it. And I was like, maybe one day I'll stop by there and see what it is. And it was actually on a Friday, late morning, almost lunchtime. I was hungover from the night before, just to be honest. And I was
College.
like, you know what? I'm probably going to just stop by and see what it is. Stopped by, talked to what was going to be the owner of that Orange Theory Fitness location. It had not opened yet. They were just doing pre-sales. And I talked to the owner of who was going to be the owner of the Orange Theory Fitness, who lived in Atlanta, which is where I grew up. And so we connected over some mutual people that we knew. And he was like, well, why don't you come in for our coaches tryout at the beginning of next year and see if you like it and see if you can become a coach? And long story short, I went to the tryout, did it, got hired to become a coach in January of my junior year of college, and fell in love with it. Absolutely fell in love with fitness training, but almost more in particular, the group fitness atmosphere, because I think that my love for working with a group towards a common goal that came from team sports growing up, I got that same hit of energy and everything from the group fitness standpoint, and leading just a high energy, fun, positive atmosphere. And essentially ever since then, I did Orange Theory Fitness for 7 years. From that point on, I dabbled with 2 weeks with a real job, and was like, no, I'm going to push that off to the side and go back to the fitness thing. And so kind of ever since then, I have been in fitness and done a lot of different things in the fitness industry ever since.
Weren't you part of like if I recall correctly, part of like an online streaming type of workout thing as well? Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, so I was a trainer for the Echelon platform. So Echelon is a platform very similar to Peloton. It's not as big in scale at the moment. It's a little bit of a newer company, but they've been around for a while now. But essentially, they have an app where people can go and take live classes and on-demand classes. They've got a treadmill, they've got a rower, they have strength training classes, they have yoga classes, they have all different types of classes. And so I started there, let's see, back in the summer of 2021, I think, or anyways, I've coached there for a year and a half. And yeah, I coached live classes on a treadmill, on a rower, and strength training classes. And it was a blast. It was one of those things where when you're teaching those classes, there's usually not people in the studio who are taking it with you live.
Yeah.
And so it almost became a different skill set. I feel like that I was able to form to create and bring the same high energy atmosphere that I'm able to in person, just to a camera. Now you see people who are on the leaderboard and you call out their names and everything. So there's a little bit of that engagement, but obviously not quite as much. But yeah, I did that for a year and a half and really enjoyed it. It was a great opportunity for me to both learn a new skill set and have a little bit more of a increased audience size from places outside of Nashville.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously now you're at Best You, and we'll get to what you're doing there. But I want to talk a little bit about getting your health in order. And the word that always comes to mind when I see people who are physically fit in some way, shape, or form, like obviously everybody looks different when they're physically fit, but the word that comes to mind is discipline, right? There's a discipline to, first of all, getting fit, and second of all, more importantly, staying healthy. So talk a little bit about the importance of discipline in the space of the fitness world. And then how can somebody make sure they remain disciplined, even with all the outside things in the world constantly nagging at them?
Yeah, no, this is a great place to kind of start the conversation around healthy habits and really lay a good foundation. I think discipline, like you said, it is the foundation for being a healthy person. And because being a healthy person requires consistency, and to be consistent, then you need to have discipline. And so everybody is going to be coming at their health and fitness journey from a different place, right? And a lot of it depends on how you currently view yourself. So if you currently are somebody who dabbles in health and fitness, and you see yourself as somebody who dabbles in health and fitness, that's going to be a little bit different than the person who does not dabble in health and fitness at all, because they see themselves as the type of person who just doesn't even think about what they put in their mouth or doesn't even exercise or anything at all. So the way I want to attack it is almost talking to those kind of multiple different kinds of people, because the person who currently dabbles in health and fitness, if you can go a little bit further and you can kind of transform your identity as around somebody who really prioritizes their health and fitness, then that'll get you to the next level. If somebody you don't see yourself at all who dabbles in health and fitness, then you have to take baby steps a lot more and start to change your identity. And so the way that I like to think about discipline is it's following through with the promises that you make to yourself. It's telling yourself that you're going to do something and actually doing it. And so I always see this metaphorical gap between telling yourself to do something and actually doing it. And I think there's two things that close that gap for us as individuals. One, it's kind of willpower and discipline, or willpower and motivation. And then two, it's setting yourself up for success. And so what I mean by that is all of us have had the feeling of having a lot of motivation or having a lot of willpower at any one point in time. And we know that when we have that lot of willpower, then we're going to do that thing regardless of what life throws at us, because we're just really high in energy. We just have a lot of willpower and a lot of motivation right now. Like after we listen to a podcast, after we watch a YouTube video, we're just amped up. We're like, we're going to get this thing done. We're going to go work out. But we also know that that's not going to be every single day. That's not going to last very often. So more often than not, when this gap, if motivation and willpower isn't going to take us from A to Z, then we need some other things to help carry the load. And that's what I think is setting yourself up for success. And so setting yourself up for success means preparation. It means looking at your calendar at the beginning of the week and looking at your calendar through the lens of your health and fitness goals. It's like, okay, if your health and fitness goal is to work out 4 times this week, then what is going on this week and how can you make sure you still exercise 4 times given the busyness of your life? Okay, if your goal is to eat healthier this week, and let's just get more specific for this conversation's sake, if your goal is to bring 5 healthy lunches to work this week, then what do you have to do in order to actually make sure you bring 5 healthy lunches to work this week? Do you need to go to the grocery store on Sunday? Do you need to make sure that you pack your meals the night before? Like, how can you set yourself up for success to make the healthy decision actually the easier decision and not the more difficult decision? And so there's a lot of different things that I coach people on how to set themselves up for success so that they can still achieve their health and fitness goals, presented the busyness and the chaos of their life. So I really think that's what discipline is all about. It's like, how can we have some motivation and willpower? How can we because I think there's a lot of controllables around motivation and willpower, but then there's also a lot of not controllables with that, and we need to set ourselves up for success. And then the last little piece that kind of gets into this is what I was touching on in the beginning, is what is your identity? Who do you see yourself as? And if you see yourself as a healthy person, then you're going to be much more willing and able and likely to make healthy decisions regardless of what goes on, even if you didn't plan ahead. That's where I feel like I've kind of finally gotten to as a person, is I see myself as the kind of person who can make healthy choices, especially from a food perspective. I can make healthy choices from a food perspective, even if I didn't plan ahead and I'm throwing a bunch of curveballs. And so it's kind of like these 3 different things that I think we can gradually kind of piece together to increase our motivation, to set ourselves up for success, to transform our identity so that we can maximize our discipline, meaning following through with the promises that we make to ourselves, which leads to consistency, which then leads to being a healthy and fit individual.
Yeah, dude, such a absolutely great answer. Because I think sometimes people hear discipline and they think it's people who are just constantly locked in, constantly motivated. And it's so not true. It's people who know how to shift back into the motivation, or more importantly, do the work when they're not motivated to get to where they're going, which takes me to, how do we figure out where we're going? How do we set the goals we need in our life in order to set ourselves up for success?
Yeah, no doubt about it. So when you're thinking about what your goals are, I think one of the common mistakes is that people will set a goal based off of a goal that they saw somebody else set. And so one of the most common things that I see at the beginning of every calendar year, when everybody is setting New Year's resolutions and focused on health and fitness, is people are setting a goal to run a 5K or run a 10K or run a half marathon at the beginning of the year, because for whatever reason, that's just a very easy goal to set, to run a particular distance. And then it comes to late in January or February and they stop running. And the reason was because they hate running. And so they set a goal that somebody else did because they just saw them do it, but it didn't even align with something that they enjoy or maybe even align with something that they value. So the thing that I always start with people when it comes to setting the right goals is looking at your current behaviors and seeing, okay, what do you currently do? Because there's a reason why you currently do certain things. And if there's certain exercise habits that you currently do, or that you currently embark upon, certain fitness endeavors that you currently embark upon, there's a reason why you do that thing. If you are a runner, there might be a reason why you do it. Maybe it's because you want to lose weight. If you are strength training, maybe the reason is because you want to get stronger. If you are doing yoga, maybe the reason is because you want to decrease your stress. There's always a motivation behind what you're doing. And so diving into that first, if you currently have habits in that area, is really important, because if you know you're running and then you tell yourself that you're trying to lose weight, well, okay, maybe running is a good thing that you need to be doing, but there's also some other things that you need to be doing. And then another question you can ask yourself if you're not doing anything with health and fitness is like, okay, if I could do something, what would it be and why? What would it be and why? And so you have to think about kind of what you want to look like, what you want to be able to do, and how you want to be able to perform, and what you actually enjoy doing all at the same time. And you kind of want to intertwine those three different things so that you can come up with a goal that is unique to you. Anytime anybody tells me what their goal is, I got to ask them why in the beginning. I got to ask them why. And you kind of have layers of that question. Would you enjoy doing that? Would you stay consistent with doing that thing? Because any meaningful goal is going to require consistency in order to be able to achieve that goal. And so in order to be consistent, it has to be something that you at least somewhat enjoy. So that's a brief little answer on how to come up with how each person should think about coming up with a goal that is specific to them.
Yeah, and it's so true. And I love your approach to it, right? Obviously, even your brand name, Best You, right? It's about that individual and what goals do they want to take from this versus them just going, hey, this is what you're going to do just because I said so, or just because this is what I do. And often when I talk about, goal setting or mindset, or, just talking about my life in general and how do people, build the life they want, I always go, whatever life you desire, right? Like in our world, whether it be self-development or, fitness, a lot of the times it's, this is what you want because this is what I have. Right. And it's just not the case for both of us. And I think that's why we mesh really well together. We just accept people for who they are and where they're at. And we want them to become better selves tomorrow and the next day. So talk a little bit about how somebody can actually dive deeper into themselves and figure out, well, why is it that I want this? Because I think a lot of times, like you mentioned, I'm running because somebody else was running, right? How do they dive deeper into themselves to figure that out?
Yeah. So the first step in the goal setting process that I teach people is the way that I call it is building your big. Big is an acronym, BYG. It stands for best you goal. And this is your why behind your health and fitness. And just establishing that why is so important in the beginning. And we've all heard finding your why. Simon Sinek did a really good job of making that super popular. But to me, it's really important to have a framework behind how to find your why in a way so that it's actually meaningful and purposeful and drives you moving forward. It's like the mission statement of a business. So many mission statements that businesses have are just kind of fluffy things that don't actually have any practical use to the people who are within that business. It's like, no, you got to get a why that can actually drive you, because what I say is that your why isn't just what gets you started, but it's what keeps you going when what you started gets tough. And so the way that I think about finding your why is three different things. The first is finding out what you're trying to work away from or what you're trying to avoid. Number two is think about what you're trying to work towards or who you're trying to become. And number three is who are you doing this for? So to go back through all three again. One, what are you trying to avoid? So think about the don't wants. I think this is something that's not very often talked about, but we see all the time people who become super, super, super successful because they grew up in a really crappy situation. And so they knew the life that they were trying to avoid. And so they had a hell of a sense of urgency to work away from that. And so when I coach people, I say, this isn't going to be a very fun exercise, but I want you to think about, what if your unhealthy habits got the best of you? Like, what if you continued to do these unhealthy habits? You didn't exercise, you drank too much, you ate a whole bunch of dessert week after week, month after month, year after year. Where would you end up? Like, think about it. Where would you end up? What would your life potentially look like? How would you feel? And really almost like soak in that just for a second and be like, okay, I want to work the hell away from there. And for a lot of people, oftentimes maybe it's their other family members. I have some people that I coach that are like, I have siblings that are older than me that have really unhealthy habits. They're 40 pounds overweight, and I do not want to be them. Or I have parents who are very unhealthy. I do not want to be them. And so trying to get some sort of clear picture and verbiage around what you're trying to work away from and what you don't want is really powerful to get you moving and with a sense of urgency. But then you want to be moving in the right direction. So the next part is, who do you want to become? Or it's, who do you want to be? What do you want to be able to do? And what do you want to have? And so think about it. Who do you want to be? Do you want to be a healthy person? Do you want to be somebody who is able to chase your kids around? Do you want to be somebody who can run, looked at as a runner and can run really fast? Do you want to be somebody who's strong? Like, I have a guy that I'm working with right now virtually who said to me very vulnerably that, I think my wife looks at me as a computer guy. I don't think my wife looks at me as a strong man and could defend our family. And I felt hurt for him, because that decreases his sense of pride and confidence in himself if he doesn't think that his wife looks at him in a particular way that he wants to be looked at. And so he wants to become somebody who is seen as strong and healthy and fit and a defender of his family. And so what is that for you? What is the person you want to become? What do you want to be able to do? What do you want to have? So now we have something that we're trying to run away from. We have that lion, that tiger chasing from behind us. And now we have that North Star that we're trying to work towards. And then that third part is, who are you doing this for? And what I always tell people who I'm working with is, you're doing this for yourself. Yes. Like, you need to be doing this for yourself. You want to be somebody who is healthier, potentially looks a certain way and feels a certain way. But through my experience, doing it just for yourself is not always going to get you through the tough times. Thinking about who you have the ability to positively impact is what allows you to maybe get over the hump on days when you're not feeling it. Thinking about the positive role model that you can be for your kids, the positive role model that you can be for your other family members, maybe even your parents, the positive role model that you can be for your coworkers, your peers, your friends, like all these people around you. You have the ability to completely change other people's lives simply by transforming your own. And so that is such a huge part for a lot of the people that I coach with, oftentimes, is doing it for their kids. But I also have a girl who's around my age who has never had a role model with her parents having healthy habits, but now, because she has focused on her health and fitness, her mom has also as well, and lost like 20 or 30 pounds because of that. And it's such a cool way to be able to positively impact others. So again, when you're looking for your why, think about those three components. What are you trying to work away from? What are you trying to work towards? And then who are you doing it for?
Dude, that's incredible. And such great advice too, for people to really kind of figure out, like, how do I take this life to the next level? And it starts with that thought process. And it's just so good. And I remember being on your podcast, and how did you, and there's a question about, like, how did you not end up where your parents were? And I was like, all I knew is I didn't want to be them. Right. And that's where it started. And then it took me a while to figure out the North Star. But the reality was, I knew what I didn't want, which was enough motivation at least at that point to run, right, to start moving, to go to the next level. So good, man. But I want to ask you a question that I ask every single person on the show. It's a two-part question. The first part is, what is your definition of success? And the second part is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
Ooh, I love it. I think my definition of success is constantly seeking clarity around that North Star. So constantly seeking clarity on who it is that is the best version of yourself off in the future, and then actively pursuing it by following through with the promises that you make to yourself. So gaining clarity on who that person is, and then coming up with a strategy on how to move closer to that person and executing on that strategy. So for me personally, what I do on a regular basis in order to gain clarity on the best version of myself is I create kind of definitions of success in 6 areas of my life: my health, my personal life, my career, my finances, my spiritual life, and my relationships. And so at the beginning of every single year, I look at it on an annual basis. What is success in those areas? And at the beginning of every single quarter, I reevaluate what's success mean in this upcoming quarter. And then at the beginning of every single week, I do the same thing. I say, what does success mean in each of these 6 areas? Right now, I'm reaching for a sheet of paper. Like every single week, I literally write down, it's going to be hard to see, but like health, personal, career, finances, spiritual, and relational. And I actively am managing and growing in all those areas of my life. And so I think that to become the best version of myself, to gain clarity, I need to manage and grow in all of those areas, and continuously committing to something and making a promise to myself and then following through with it.
I love it. And then what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that you can reach that North Star?
Let's say this. One of my most important habits is writing down 3 things that I'm thankful for every single day. My next most important habit, that's kind of like the overview of all my habits, is writing it down. And like I have a specific journal where I write out my day the night before, and I come up with my schedule for the day, and then I just run through it. So I'll say 3 things I'm thankful for, planning my day the night before on a specific medium, sheet of paper, or whatever works best for you. And I think the third thing is encouraging others. On a daily basis, I try to seek out as many people as possible to encourage. And I think for me, I'm lucky in the sense that I'm a trainer and I'm working with people on a daily basis. And I have the outlet to be able to encourage people frequently. But I've just seen, I'm almost like getting emotional. I've like just seen so much power come from encouraging people. I was always fortunate in having people who encouraged me growing up, great parents, great teachers, great coaches, people who encouraged me. And so I thought that was normal until a number of years ago when I realized the power that other people have when other people speak belief into them that they haven't really felt before. And to see them be able to take that and run with it is super important. So 3 things I'm thankful for: plan my day the night before and on a specific medium, and then encourage others on a daily basis.
Love it, man. So at the end of your life, if you could only be remembered for 1 sentence, what would that sentence be?
Ooh, I need to actually I did an exercise a while back where I wrote my own eulogy.
Wow.
I'm not going to be able to remember it off the top of my head, but it's going to be something to the extent that Nick was somebody who always brought a positive energy into the room and encouraged others that they could become the best version of themselves, and he helped them get there.
Dude, I love it, man. I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before we get there, how do people get a hold of you? How can they work with you, whether it be virtually with your new program that you're doing online? What's all the good stuff?
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. NickCarrier.com is my website. And there we have the Best You podcast. There we have the 10-week transformation that you just mentioned. We just launched our virtual version of the program, which I'm super excited about. There are video workouts that you can complete any day, anytime, whatever works best for you. And then we'll have weekly accountability calls. And then on socials, I'm most active on Instagram at carrier_bestyou, but on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube as well with all that stuff. So appreciate it.
Look, and here's what I'll say. Like, if you guys want to work with somebody who actually cares about your mindset, your health, your life, like Nick is the guy, like just his character, what he brings to the table. So make sure you go reach out, sign up for one of his stuff, sign up for his email list. I don't even know what he's got going on, but sign up for all the stuff, man, just to get connected with him and see where it goes in your life for sure. So like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
I almost might be in it right now. So at the beginning of this calendar year, I made the leap to work for myself only. So I've had Best You as my business for 5 years now, but it started really slowly with not that much, and I've had the 10-week transformation now for almost 3 years. But ever since I had worked for Orange Theory Fitness for 7 years, I worked for Echelon for a year and a half, had a lot of other jobs in the fitness industry, and I made the leap at the beginning of the year to work for myself only. And I knew that it was going to come with periods of discomfort. I knew it was going to come with putting my back against the wall and that feeling of urgency. But I knew that that was something that I wanted. I knew that it was something that I needed. And right now I'm definitely experiencing the discomfort, and now it's time to walk the walk and embrace the discomfort and show up and show out as the best version of myself amidst the discomfort and not cower down to it. So I think right now potentially might be a pretty good feeling of discomfort, which is the catalyst for growth.
Dude, I love it, man. Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your wisdom with my audience, but more importantly, showing up even when it's uncomfortable and helping people do the same thing every single day, because you truly are making the world a better place, man. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Justin. Appreciate you, bro.